We have New Jersey author Michelle Dickinson. And so I'm going to tell you a little bit about her, and then we're going to go ahead and get started. So Michelle Dickinson is a well-being strategist and passionate mental health advocate. She is also a TEDx speaker and a published author of a memoir entitled Breaking Into My Life. Michelle goes first and sees herself as the bridge that helps people get comfortable with their mental health so that they reach out and get the support they need before they hit a crisis. She makes it okay to not be okay and thrives on making a real difference in the lives of others, especially around their well-being. After years of playing the role of child caregiver to her bipolar mother, Michelle embarked on her own healing journey of self-discovery. She went on to spend years working to eradicate the mental health stigma in her own workplace by elevating empathy and compassion, causing more open conversations, and leading real change in how mental illness is understood. She was instrumental in building the largest and fastest growing employee mental health resource group while at her Fortune 50 company. Thank you, Michelle, for joining us. And we're excited to have you, and we're excited to hear your story.
Thank you so much, Jessica. Thank you for finding me. Thank you for reaching out to me. It is truly a privilege to be here with you tonight and to be able to share my story with you. So thank you so much. So as you said in the introduction, I grew up with a mother who had bipolar disorder, and there's a picture of her here on the screen. And she suffered from bipolar disorder for, I guess my entire life. I was very, very little when she was diagnosed. And she had been in and out of the hospital several times for treatment. But she really had a hard time with mental illness throughout my entire life. And I equate it to riding a roller coaster, because with someone who has bipolar disorder, they have rapid highs and really, really dark lows. Moments where there's nothing you can do to console them in their depression, and then their mania, where it's a lot like Disney, and there's anything can happen and it's exhilarating. So she really did have a struggle with bipolar for many, many years of her life. So that was my normal, just living with a mom who was sick, and not something I ever really wanted to talk about. It was one of those things where I was just happy that I sort of made it out of my childhood and became a contributing member to society. And I never really spoke about that experience until fast forward, I was at my last company, a Fortune 50 company, and I was invited to give a TED Talk about that experience. A colleague of mine had found out about it and thought that it would be a good idea to tell the story and help people understand mental illness. So there I was giving a TED Talk in front of all of my colleagues, telling the story of what life was like growing up with my mom. And then after that, so that was a 13-minute talk. And that was actually a very pivotal point for me, because, there's something extremely powerful about storytelling and about going first. And so when I went first, people just sort of came out of the darkness and wanted to talk to me, because they had their own personal stories with mental illness that they hadn't had the courage to talk about. So when we tell our stories, it creates almost like an access for other people to just be able to open up and talk about it. And there was something really remarkably powerful about that. And I said, my goodness, if I could do this through the power of a TED Talk, what could I do with a memoir? What if I wrote my story? And so being a girl who struggled with self-confidence issues, not knowing, if what I had to say mattered, stepping on the TED stage definitely gave me the confidence to go ahead and write my memoir. So I sat down, and it was several years, very, very cathartic process. I wrote my memoir, Breaking Into My Life, to really humanize mental health and have people just who maybe had no prior relationship to mental illness, to give them an understanding and to really humanize how hard it is to love someone with a mental illness, how punishing it can be, but yet just how painful it can be for them as well. So I released the memoir, and before you knew it, I was becoming an advocate, someone who really wanted to remove the stigma that prevented so many people from getting care. And at the time, we were building an employee resource group for mental health. And so I was part of the leadership team to really create a culture of inclusion and compassion. So people of all abilities, physical abilities, mental abilities, could show up and be their best self without fear or embarrassment or judgment. And having been adopted, I never in a million years thought that I would ever deal with a mental illness. But while all of this is going on, the book is released, the employee resource group is being built, I start to go through my own struggles. I was going through a divorce after being married for 16 years of my life. And I found myself in a really dark place. And it's very different to look at mental illness from the lens of a caregiver and see what the person is dealing with over there. But when you are confronted with that same darkness yourself, it is so hard to navigate. And so because I had grown up with my mom, I always had a healthy relationship to therapy. So I knew, I'm like, I need to go and see a therapist. So I got myself into care. And sure enough, I was diagnosed with depression. And I had to navigate that for the first time. So I dealt with depression myself, and I know how hard it is to deal with that, and how much courage it takes to own it and get care. So that's really my story in a nutshell. Fast forward, and my position in my company would be eliminated in my corporate job. So I was at this crossroads of my life saying to myself, well, now that I know the power of my story and know the power that we have as individuals to tell our story, to remove stigma, what could I do with this? How could I make a difference in the world? So I just decided I'm leaving corporate America. I'm going to create my own company. And so that was when Trifecta Mental Health was born. My website here, Care for Your People, is my company is really designed to create compassion in the world. I feel like we really need more compassion for people with invisible disabilities. And so the work that I get to do with my clients is really around building compassion, recentering employees. I'm going to share with you some tips today to help everyone sort of recenter themselves. This has not been a very easy 15 months behind us. So I definitely want to leave you with some of the tips that I share. But I just got really connected to, if I was to pass tomorrow, like, how would I want my life left? And I definitely wanted to use my voice and my message to really make a difference in the world. So that's really my story in a nutshell. So if you have any questions, I'll take them. Otherwise, I can go right into the tips that I have to share.
Yeah. So, what was the hardest part about being a child caregiver? We don't think about taking care of our parents until we're adults. So, what was that like? What was that the toughest part of that?
Yeah, that's such a great question. It's a question I get all the time. And you don't know what you don't know. So I think for me, I didn't know any different. I just knew my mother was always sick, and like I needed to be there to support her and help her. But I didn't know how unusual that was for a child to take the role of the adult in that relationship, because that's basically what I had come to do, between cooking dinner and cleaning and doing laundry and doing all the things that my mom should be doing for the family. So I didn't really know any different until I would like go to my girlfriends' houses and see the reaction, like the interaction between the mother and the daughter and the responsibilities and how different it was. I think, looking back, the hardest thing for me was feeling like I didn't have a voice and that my feelings, needs, and desires didn't matter. Because when you grow up in a caregiver situation, you are always doing whatever you can to keep them okay. And it oftentimes goes at the expense of what you need. So I learned to keep my mouth shut. I learned to not speak up. I didn't want to be the source of any pain in the family. So I definitely didn't use my voice. So I think the hardest part for me was something I'm still trying to unlearn to this day. And that is like, we all have a voice and all of our voices matter. And if we need something, we need to speak up. And then I think the other aspect was seeing my mom so sad. right? Seeing her when she would hit rock bottom, and I would see her, she was crying uncontrollably and there was nothing I could do. There is something so incredibly painful about seeing someone you love suffer and not being able to help them. And that's something I will never forget. It's just seeing her pain, the pain in her face, and just wanting to remove the pain from her, but I couldn't do it. There was nothing I could do. So I think that was probably another hard aspect of loving her. Yeah.
And you also shared that you've always had a open relationship with therapy. So, like, what were your first thoughts when you realized something was not right with you?
Yeah, that is another great question. I think, you know, it's recognizing the things that you love that you don't, there were certain things that I loved to do that I just didn't want to do, and I knew that it wasn't normal. And I knew that getting out of bed shouldn't be hard. And wanting to sleep all the time, that was something I knew wasn't normal, because my mom would sleep and sleep and sleep. And I'd be like, good goodness, how does she sleep so much? And it was just this desire to want to escape my life, and escape anything that was going on because I couldn't deal with it. When that happened, I was like, oh, this is not right. I am not myself, because I guess I always knew myself to be someone who was positive and bubbly and, energetic, and I just didn't have it. So I was like, this is a problem. I really do need to talk to someone and just try to figure this out. And so that was when I reached out to my therapist. Yeah.
And then I just have one more question for you. So this one is about the becoming an advocate for your job. What was like the driving force that you knew that something needed to change and you needed to be vocal about it? You needed to lead that charge.
Yeah, it's amazing, because it's sort of, employee resource groups have always been something I've been involved with throughout my corporate career. And the power of unity when you bring people together who understand one another just by, how they were raised, who they are as individuals, their ethnicity. When you have groups like that come together, there's power there because there's support. And, when I thought about the fact that so many people suffer in silence and embarrassment, and, that extra layer of stress in having to keep mental illness a secret, I thought about all of that. I was like, an employee resource group, a community of people where people could just be who they were authentically, could be so powerful in terms of having them be able to be themselves, a place where they could be themselves, a place where they could support one another. Like, what kind of support are you getting? What therapy are you getting? What's worked for you? That sense of community, the power of community, was really the magic that I saw possible. And I think we all saw possible, was like, imagine if we could, feel comfortable with a group of people. And honestly, that's what happened. It's sort of like build it and they will come. And more people just started emerging. It was a global organization for people from all over the globe were like raising their hand and going, I want to get involved. I don't know what that means, but I've been affected. I've either suffered or I've been affected, and I have something to say, and I want to be a part of this because this is good. So there's a lot of power in employee resource groups, especially around something that's still very stigmatized, like mental illness.
So those are the only questions I have for you. If you want to go on with the tips, I really appreciate that.
Sure. So what I'm going to share with everyone today are just some of the tips that I like to share with my clients when I'm working with them. COVID has been extremely challenging for so many of us that a lot of us were just sort of going through the motions, just trying to hold it together. And, well-being has definitely suffered. A lot of people are struggling with some type of depression or anxiety. I think the CDC says that 1 in 3 Americans struggle with either depression or anxiety because of the pandemic. So my goal is to recenter people and have them get connected to things they can do, like tangible things you can do to start to feel better and to really take care of your well-being, before anything escalates. And it is like a garden, like it's just like our physical health. Like you can't ignore it. You have to take care of it regularly. So the first tip I have for you is really something that is so basic, and that is getting present to how you're doing. It's the self-audit of your emotional and your mental well-being. And I think a lot of us, we wake up in the morning and we do this physical body scan, right? What's the last thing that you pulled? What did you work out too hard at the gym? And so you're present to the physical challenges that you're feeling, but maybe we're not reflecting on how we're doing emotionally or mentally. So this is just a great opportunity for you to like maybe pause right now and ask yourself, how am I doing? Just get really present to that, because if you can get present to how you're doing in that moment, and if you're not doing great, you have an opportunity to reach out to someone that you love and trust to talk to them. And if they can connect with you and you connect with them, you can help yourself not escalate into feeling worse. So it's really important to get into the habit of assessing how you're doing mentally and emotionally, and not let it go and not let it compound, day after day. So this is just a helpful tool to do that. And that's always the first step, is knowing how you're doing. And then the second tip I have is around gratitude. It's very, we live in a very, let's say media focused world, whether it's the news or social media. And if you listen to it too much, it can create fear. But if you can also force yourself to get present to the good in your life, it can really help you step away from the fear, because you can't be fearful and grateful simultaneously. And during the pandemic, it was so easy to focus on all the things that were taken from us, right? Our freedom was taken from us, our ability to do the things that we love, ability to see the loved ones in our lives. So there's very easy to focus on the lack and what was missing. Gratitude is such a simple practice, and it is so powerful, and it's such a great way to shift your mindset. And it's actually been proven that the first 17 seconds when you wake up in the morning, what you choose to do in those first 17 seconds can set your day off into an entirely different trajectory. So if you were like me, I used to wake up and grab this and start scrolling through social media and check my messages. And before I even got out of bed, I was so stressed out. I was so overwhelmed, and I wasn't feeling very good. So now what I do is I wake up in the morning, and the first thing I do in the first 17 seconds that I'm waking up is I'm getting present to what is good in my life. What are 3 things that are good in my life? And the way I do that is I do this gratitude practice. I do it through an app on my phone. I avoid social media. I go right to my 5-minute journal. And it literally asks you, what are 3 things that you're grateful for? And what are you going to do to make today great? And in that moment, when you're logging these things, you start to feel good. You immediately are starting to feel good. Okay, well, this is good. This is good in my life. Oh, I'm going to do this today. I'm going to do that. And your mind is in a much better place. So that's just a practice that I choose to do to help me start my day on the right foot. And I invite you to consider introducing some type of gratitude practice into your routine as well. The third tip that I have for you is all around working from home. So many of us have been working from home and we're in the same space. Well, there are 3 things that we can do to recharge our space, because where we're sitting every day impacts how we're doing, our energy levels. And you don't have to go and remodel your room. You don't have to get, a new fresh coat of paint and new furniture. Instead, you can play to your senses, and you can recharge your space by simply changing what you look at, change what you're listening to, and change the sense that you smell. So for me, I have a diffuser back on my little table over there, and I put peppermint oil or eucalyptus oil in my diffuser. So that's what fills my space. And I listen to soft music, and I actually have a motivational print I put right behind my computer screen that I look up to when my eyes are not on the screen. And it does help me. So if you're looking to refresh your workspace so that you just feel better where you're sitting every day, consider those 3 things and play to your senses. And then finally, I have another tip. This tip is pretty, is one of my favorites, but a lot of people might not recognize the power of it. So I have been a big advocate of meditation for a very long time. I trained with transcendental meditation practitioners, and I learned how to do TM, but you don't need to do TM to get the benefits of meditation. The reality is that stress is a part of our lives. We have a lot of stress in our lives, from work to family to financial responsibilities. All of this is a reality, and stress is never going to go away. And cortisol levels in our bodies rise when we're under stress. So one of the secret weapons to really helping us manage stress can be meditation. The power of meditation is incredible. It's been proven that meditation can actually improve our concentration, can help us be less bothered by those little things that show up in our lives. It can improve our overall health, physical health, heart health, all of our health. And it can actually help us get connected to ourselves, improving our sense of self. So those are just some benefits. If you're like me, I need to know why. So that's really the why behind why meditation is so important. And if you'd like, I would love to have you do a short 3-minute meditation, because I would love for you to experience a meditation. And it doesn't have to be long. So this meditation is only 3 minutes. And if you do it, if you follow along, you will realize a sense of relaxation, and that I hopefully will intrigue you to do more of it. So without further ado, I will share that with you. Okay. Here we go. This is a free meditation on YouTube by Deepak Chopra. You don't have to download an app. You can simply go to YouTube. So here we go. 3 minutes.
Okay, now we're going to do something very interesting. We won't close our eyes, okay? So have what is called soft eyes, which means become aware of the space we're in. Don't focus on me, although you're aware of me on your screen, but actually I'm in your consciousness right now. But just be aware of the space we're in. And now let's start our meditation. So start to observe your breath. Start to observe your breath and don't manipulate it. And notice that even as you observe it, it slows down. Your mind will wander. When you become aware that it wanders, bring it back to your breathing. As it goes in through your nostrils and then out through your nostrils. Okay, now we're going to do something very interesting. You may keep your eyes open, but start to repeat your full name. So I am Deepak Chopra. I am Mary Jo. Repeat it mentally. And now invite all the stresses you have right now, all the things you have to do, your deadlines, all the problems you have. Invite them. Let your awareness fill up with them. Okay, now drop your last name. Just repeat your first name. I am Deepak. Mentally. And this time, invite experiences from your childhood into your awareness. When you were less than 12, your parents, your siblings, your school, your classmates, happy days, not so happy days. And now drop your first name. Just say I am, with no labels attached. I am. Let memories and thoughts fade. Just I am. Now if you want, you can replace I am with aham or om. Just a sound. No associations. Let's do it for a few seconds. Aham. Aham. Now even let that go. Sit quietly and just be aware of being aware. This is our ground state before a thought arises, before a feeling. It's who we really are. a field of infinite potential. Rest in being. Rest in awareness. Rest in existence. Just be. Okay, before we come out, feel all the sensations in your body. I hope you're feeling a little refreshed. You can do this again and do it as often as you want. And you can do it for longer. Thank you.
So that was 3 minutes, and it was just to give you a sense of how relaxing it is to meditate. And if you did that every day, even if you did it for 5 minutes, how much better you might feel. It's pretty powerful. It's got this sort of compounding effect if you do it regularly. So finally, I just want to share with you some free mental well-being resources and support in case you didn't know of them. I know some people might not be comfortable calling their company resources, so I always like to just make sure you know where you can go outside of company resources. But before we dive in, the one thing I do want to mention, this is something that always comes up. I have parents saying to me, I'm really worried about my teen or my tween. I'm worried about their well-being. What can I do to help them? And like the one thing I always recommend is for them to model good mental health hygiene. It is so important as adults that we are checking in with ourselves, that we're talking about how we're feeling, that we're demonstrating well-being in terms of going for that walk or getting that exercise in or doing something that's going to make us feel good. Our young people are definitely at risk. They're struggling, and there's way too much teen suicide. So one of the ways that we can actually help them is to show them, demonstrate to them that we're aware of what we need and we are taking care of ourselves, because they're going to want to model that after that. So I just wanted to share that because I know that there's a lot of moms and dads out there who might be worried about their kids. Okay, so these are some of the resources that are available that you might not know about. The National Alliance on Mental Illness is an alliance of more than 600 local affiliates who work in your community to raise mental health awareness and provide support and education. They're great. It's a great organization for families, for family support of loved ones with a mental illness. And they also have a really good signs and symptoms of depression list that they have available. So if you sense that someone you love is depressed, you can go to their website and see what they recommend and maybe connect to a local chapter. Psychology Today is a great resource if you're looking for a clinician. You can literally type in your zip code and it will pop up reputable therapists in your area that you can research. Mental Health America is a wonderful resource that has a lot of great tools and tips in there and things that you can do to help yourself and your loved ones. And then Talkspace. Talkspace is telemedicine. So if you're looking for support and you want to get supported quickly, Talkspace is a great resource. Michael Phelps is made very popular to really just reach out and get support and not have to wait through telemedicine. Now, reaching men with mental health has always been something that has been a challenge because society teaches men to not talk about their feelings. And if I had a dime for every conversation I've had about men's mental health with people who are concerned about the men in their lives, I think I might be rich. There's a lot of opportunity to really support our men so they don't suffer in silence because of societal norms. So one of the resources that I love to share for whether it be a man who might be struggling or someone who loves a man, a brother, a partner, a father, is this wonderful website called mantherapy.org. Mantherapy.org is a fun website that is very goofy and has a comedian talking about why it's important to talk about your emotions. It's just a great way to reach someone if you have a loved one you're worried about. It's just a great resource, and I can't mention it enough. It's mantherapy.org. And then finally, I have my own mental health series that I do. I interview influential people, physicians, leaders in the mental health space to really help us all understand mental illness, whether it's understanding a diagnosis or understanding someone's lived mental health experience. I'm on a mission to really cause more open conversations. So you can check me out on YouTube, Michelle's Conversations That Matter, and follow me on Instagram. And my book is Breaking Into My Life if you are interested. And if you're in the workplace and you're looking to elevate compassion and help recenter your employees, you can reach me on careforyourpeople.com. And that's what I have to share today.
Thank you so much, Michelle, for sharing that with us and for being vulnerable and sharing your story and the struggles that you went through personally.
You're welcome. Thank you for having me.